Hulk Hogan died on July 24, 2025, at the age of 71 after suffering cardiac arrest in Florida. The wrestling world was rocked when news broke that the most recognizable name in professional wrestling history had died of cardiac arrest in Florida. As tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, one stood out above the rest. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy himself, broke down in tears as he shared his most emotional tribute yet to the man he battled for years but always loved as a brother. This is the story of Ric Flair's emotional farewell to Hulk Hogan. When TMZ went live with Ric Flair just minutes after Hogan's death was confirmed, fans witnessed something rare. The usually confident, flamboyant Flair could barely contain his grief. He choked up almost immediately, telling Harvey Levin that the news was unbelievable. Just a day before, Flair had spoken with Jimmy Hart, Hogan's longtime manager and close friend, who had assured him that Hulk was fine. Flair's voice cracked as he admitted that nothing could have prepared him for such a devastating loss. The friendship between Flair and Hogan stretched across decades. On screen, they were rivals. Hogan represented the all-American superhero, the man kids cheered for and adults admired. Flair was the arrogant, jet-flying, limousine-riding villain who fans loved to hate. Together, they drew some of the biggest crowds and created unforgettable memories. Yet behind the curtain, they built a bond that transcended the ring. Flair explained that the rivalry was just a story. The truth was that they were brothers. "We had magic," Flair said, his eyes full of tears. Flair began to recount some of his personal memories. One story stood out. Years ago, Flair hit hard times financially. Wrestling had given him fame, but he had also lived a lifestyle that left him strapped for cash. It was Hulk Hogan who stepped in. Hogan quietly lent Flair money when he needed it most. And when Flair tried to pay it back, Hogan wouldn't accept it. That simple act of generosity stayed with Flair forever. In his tribute, he asked the question that echoed in the hearts of many fans. How do you forget things like that? Another memory cut even deeper. Several years back, Flair faced a near-death medical emergency. He spent weeks in the hospital, uncertain if he would survive. During that terrifying time, one of the first people to show up at his bedside was Hulk Hogan. For Flair, that act was proof of the kind of man Hogan really was. Not just the larger-than-life superstar, but the friend who showed up when it mattered most. As Flair relived the memory, he broke down again. His voice trailed off as he struggled to put into words what Hogan's support had meant. The wrestling business is built on rivalries, betrayals, and storylines that blur the line between fiction and reality. But Flair's tribute cut through all of that. It reminded fans that behind the characters are men who sacrifice their bodies and build bonds that last a lifetime. For Flair, losing Hogan wasn't just losing an opponent or a co-worker. It was losing a brother. It was losing someone who understood the unique pressures and challenges of being at the very top of the wrestling world. Hogan's death also reminded Flair of his own battles with mortality. Flair himself nearly died in 2017 due to health complications, and he has openly admitted that every day since has felt like a gift. Reflecting on Hogan's sudden passing, Flair admitted it felt like another harsh reminder that even the strongest, even the heroes, are not invincible. His tribute was more than grief. It was a message about the fragility of life and the importance of treasuring relationships. Fans watching the interview saw a vulnerable side of Ric Flair rarely shown. The Nature Boy is famous for his charisma, his "woo" catchphrase, and his endless confidence. But in that moment, all of that faded away. What remained was a man mourning his friend, speaking honestly about the impact Hulk Hogan had on his life. The response was immediate. Social media lit up with fans praising Flair for his honesty. Many said his words captured exactly what they were feeling but couldn't express. Clips of Flair crying and recalling his memories spread rapidly, with fans calling it one of the most powerful moments in wrestling history. Flair also spoke about Hogan's legacy. He said that Hogan was more than a wrestler. He was the man who brought professional wrestling into mainstream pop culture. He was the reason kids across the world wore headbands, ripped their shirts, and believed in Hulkamania. Flair, who built his own legendary career, was clear. No one had ever done what Hogan did for wrestling. He acknowledged that his friend was larger than life, not just in the ring, but in the way he lived. But what touched people most was Flair's insistence that Hogan's true greatness lay not in the arenas he sold out or the championships he won, but in the way he treated people, behind the scenes. The money he gave without asking for it back. The hospital visits when others stayed away. The loyalty he showed to his friends. Those were the qualities Flair wanted the world to remember. As the conversation went on, Flair struggled repeatedly to compose himself. At one point, he admitted that the pain was overwhelming. He repeated again and again how terrible it was to lose Hulk Hogan. The grief was raw, and fans could feel every ounce of it. This wasn't the Nature Boy cutting a promo. This was Ric Flair, the man mourning his brother. The two men shared countless memories over the years. They headlined shows together in the WWE and WCW, battled in steel cages, and carried entire promotions on their backs. But as Flair's tribute made clear, their connection ran deeper than any storyline. They had lived the same life, carried the same burdens, and earned the same scars. They had stood shoulder to shoulder through decades of change in the wrestling industry. And now, for the first time, Flair had to stand without him. Hogan was 71 years old when he died, but his influence stretched far beyond those years. He became a cultural icon in the 80s, starring in movies, appearing on talk shows, and selling merchandise in numbers that had never been seen before. For many fans, Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was a hero. And for Ric Flair, he was also the friend who never turned his back. As Flair's words spread, they sparked reflection across the wrestling world. Kurt Angle said that his own career might not have happened if Hogan hadn't paved the way. Fellow icons like Kevin Nash, Diamond Dallas Page, and even Hogan's longtime rivals shared stories of their own. But none carried the same weight as Flair's. His tears reminded everyone that beneath the entertainment was a man grieving deeply. In the end, Ric Flair's tribute to Hulk Hogan wasn't just about wrestling. It was about friendship, loyalty, and love. It was about the moments that happen away from the spotlight that define who we are. Flair made sure the world knew that Hulk Hogan was more than just the face of wrestling. He was a man who showed kindness when it counted, who gave when it was needed, and who never stopped being a friend. For Flair, the pain will linger. For fans, the loss will sting. But thanks to Ric Flair's honesty, the world will remember not just Hulk Hogan the superstar, but Hulk Hogan the man. And maybe that's the most fitting tribute of all.